very clear. Like we help the men become better men by quitting porn, rebuilding a life, and stepping into life that they were created to live. So there's an element of faith rooted in it. There's an element of stepping into a bigger calling and purpose for your life. Our logo is a phoenix inside of a lion's head. So we take them through a death and resurrection, killing off of their old self, and then releasing them back out into the wild or into the world as a man that is ready to conquer and take claim in his life. So for you, what does that journey process look like with the wives?
I love this. Okay, so my whole goal with the women is to help them learn that they can move forward independent of what their husband is doing. So much of the resources, so many of the resources that are out there for women right now are all, have you heard of, the term betrayal trauma? That is a term I do not like because what I have found is it very often keeps women the victim. It kind of makes you stay in almost a victim mentality where you have a villain. He's this terrible person, or he did something that was so bad, which is very comforting and validating to stay in that mindset. However, when you are in that mindset, it's very hard to see your husband or your partner as someone you want to stay with and in a way that you can both move forward. And it keeps you on separate playing fields. It's almost like an I'm better than he is. Like he did this terrible thing to me. It puts you on different levels. And it's very hard to move forward when you are in that mindset because you always have to have a villain. If you're the victim, there's always going to be a villain. And if he's the villain, that's not someone it's going to be a little bit harder to have a great relationship with that frame of mind. So, when I coach women, my coaching program is designed to help them stop seeing themselves as the victim. You have to be willing to get rid of that story. You have to be willing to say, you know what? I can't control him. I'm not the victim. I don't have to stay this way. I can move forward. I can heal and I can move forward even if he doesn't. Most women think that the ability for them to move forward is attached to his recovery, right? They think that I'm feeling miserable and like crap and I don't trust him and none of this is going to get fixed unless he gets sober, right? But the problem with that is that it doesn't work like that, right? Because all his addiction did was bring up your own stuff. It didn't create it. My husband's pornography addiction didn't create my physical insecurities. I've had those since I was 11. It just brought them to the surface. And so that's my work to look at those and to work through those so that I can move forward and stop using his addiction as an excuse to keep them with me. Does that make sense? You're smiling. Does that make sense?
Jillian, I love you so much. Are you familiar with Donald Miller, building a story brand? I don't know how much you put
No,
into.
no,
Okay,
I'm not.
so Donald Miller, he wrote building a story brand. His company is story brand. He wrote Business Made Simple, Marketing Made Simple. He's got another book called The Hero Something, but he's a business coach consultant. But he coaches business through the lens of storytelling, and his work is centered around like the anatomy of a story, and every story holds four characters. You have a victim, villain, hero, and guide. And as you're talking about this, I'm like, God, I love what she's doing because she is you're speaking at the narrative level where you're using these terms like you're a victim and villain, but then you're taking the woman and saying, no, none of this is going to lead you. Being either the victim is not going to lead you to success in your life. You need to become the hero of your own story, of your own journey. And I got some pushback like a year ago when I told a woman, I said, your husband's porn addiction may be the greatest opportunity in your life for you to expose yourself to your own weaknesses, your own shortcomings, do the own work on yourself while he's working on himself. Then you guys come back together and you create this unity. You create this family with a deeper, much bigger mission and calling. I love that is where you're taking all of this. Is you're like, hey, you know what? What happened has happened. Like if we focus on the problem, it's going to just continue to manifest and create bigger problems. Look at it as an opportunity to identify weaknesses in your own self. Like we all have them. Every single one of us has things that we need to improve upon. So why not look at this as an opportunity to work on those things while your husband is obviously working on the biggest problem in his life? And I don't know, and I don't know why I wasn't able to find anybody else that like agreed with that because I was getting pushback from both men and women, saying, "No, Frank, that's not the case. You have to heal the heart. You have to look at it through emotions." And I'm like, "No, you don't. Because if you fix yourself, your heart will be healed in the process. If you begin to grow and work on areas where you're short, work on areas where you're weak, work on growing and evolving and becoming a better version of you, your heart will
Yes.
heal itself in that process because you cannot become complete and whole. You cannot become the person God created you to be with a broken heart." So I love all of that.
100%. 100%. I love that you said that because that is something that, yes, is difficult to hear. A lot of women, because here's what happens is a lot of women think that if you say, "Hey, let's work on you," then their brain goes, "Well, then you're telling me that there's something wrong with me that I'm responding this way." And that's not the case. It's not that you're, you know, made incorrectly. And there's something we have to fix about you. But the opportunity here is, okay, yeah, that happened. Your husband is struggling with porn. So what? And I don't mean that flippantly. I mean, what are you going to do about it? We can't change him. Our brain always wants to focus on other people. It always wants to focus on the things outside of us and change those. It thinks that, well, once we change something outside of us, that will solve our internal struggles, right? If I lose weight, then I'll feel better about myself. If I make more money, then I'll feel more successful. If my husband stops watching porn, then I'll feel more confident. And it's totally backwards. We're doing it the wrong way. We're trying to work from the outside in, and we have to work from the inside out. The truth is that all of these internal struggles, all the insecurity, the distrust, all of it could have come up whether or not your husband was addicted to porn. It could have come up from the porn addiction, or maybe it would have come up if he lost his job, or maybe it would have come up if your kid, heaven forbid, started hurting themselves. Whatever it is, all it is just your own internal stuff that you've been trying to suppress for your entire life, all of a sudden coming to the surface. And now we get to look at it. And this is the best news ever, which is what I always say, because now we get to look at it on purpose and decide if we're going to use it for our advantage, if we're going to use it to look at it and become the next version of ourselves, right? Like you said, the version that God wants us to be. I mean, we're here on this life to progress, to use this human experience that we have and the relationships that we're in to move forward. But that's our choice. We can either use the things that we experience to stay exactly where we are, or we can use them to move forward. And that's the choice that you have. So, which do you choose? It's very tempting to stay where we are because where we are is comfortable. Our comfort zone is what keeps us stuck because we don't want to step into discomfort on purpose. That's very hard to do. So we just want to stay exactly where we are, even if where we are isn't where we want to be, because it's what we know. It's what we're comfortable with. I'm comfortable not trusting my husband. I'm comfortable thinking of him as the villain. It's more uncomfortable to possibly let go of that narrative, to let go of that story, because if I don't have a villain, I can't blame him for how I'm feeling. I have to take responsibility for it in order to move forward. And that's
Yeah.
harder to do.
No, I love that so much, and it's the conversation that I have weekly, right? "Oh, I'm struggling, but I'll quit when I get a wife. I'll quit when I become successful. I'll quit when I graduate school." And the answer is, no, you won't, because the person that's gonna arrive at that future destination is the same person that you are right now, and that's why everything that I talk about, everything that we do is centered around that identity change. This is so good.